Hello, and welcome to Healing from the Mess with Lizzie. In this podcast, I will be sharing stories about my childhood, my teenage years, early adulthood, even my life now. It won't be a smooth conversation or even in chronological order, but I hope you will stick with me while I start to heal from the trauma that was caused in my life by a mother who forgot how to love me. On this episode, I will be talking about forgiveness of a person that did something not great to me and to my mom, and the fact that healing is a journey and it's perfectly okay to be angry. So I pre-recorded a couple episodes and I had them scheduled to come out next year. And these episodes triggered me to do some digging into my past and my mother. And I wanted to know if she lied about two specific things, which then led me to dig out old photographs and an old letter. And per my digging, I found out that there's a 90% chance that she was truthful about her childhood and she was truthful about an incident regarding me. And it also led me to this discovery or realization, maybe a better word, that I don't have to just remember the bad things that somebody did. I hated my grandfather, my mother's father, for a really long time. But the past few weeks, I have spent getting to know the person he was, the person he showed to the rest of the world. And the person he was to the rest of the world and to most of his grandchildren was a really good man. He had demons. He did a lot of messed up things. But he's dead. He's been dead for almost 17 years now. So I took a few of the photographs I had of him and his wife, and a picture I have of me and his wife and my son, and I put them on my fireplace mantle because I want to tell my kids about the cool things about him. I don't have to tell them all the bad things. I don't have to dive into that topic with my children. I can share with them the cool things he did, what he did as a profession, places he traveled to, without talking about the bad, because I remember the bad and I probably will never forget the bad. But I'm in a place now where I'm able to actually forgive him and move forward and not be afraid anymore and find peace in that memory of him. And I'm really thankful for that. Am I angry at my mom? Yeah. This is new for me. I moved over 150 miles away from her, and I have a lot to work through when it comes to her, which is why I made this podcast. Why I started journaling again. Because I have a lot to work through that I was never able to work through because she was constantly in my face. That man, I have not seen since I was 3 years old. I wasn't at his funeral, and I have very limited memories of him. I am able to get there today in my forgiveness, in my journey of healing from that part of my life because of who I am today. Right now, I'm in the middle of healing from the things my mother did and didn't do, and that's okay. But that's where I'm at in my journey with healing from from healing from the damage my mother caused. I have healed from the damage he did, because who I am today isn't because of what that man did. I am who I am today because of the things I went through. They are snippets of my life, of my story. They are little tiny pieces of me that make me me. It's not just one thing. We are all the pieces of the memories of our life. One single event can change you, yes, but it's what you do after that event that matters. How you deal with it, how you cope, how you process. And sometimes it takes years to get there. Our journey of life is to be cherished and lived. But it's so important to feel your feelings while you're having them. It's okay to be where you are. Even if you wanted to be further along, things happen when they're supposed to happen. Do I wish that I could have dealt with all these things with my mother 10 years ago, 15 years ago? Absolutely. I do not like that this is a recent thing, but it is a recent thing because I have never been this far from my mother's grasp. Even when I lived with my father and I would visit her every other weekend, I was only 45 minutes away. So there's a whole thing. I could probably talk about my dad, but that's the thing. I've already healed from my dad's stuff. He wasn't a perfect parent. No one is. And he did the best he could with the knowledge he had at the time. So there's so much stuff I could delve into. But what I really wanted to come on this episode and say is you can get to a place where you forgive someone who hurt you 40 years ago and still be angry at someone who has hurt you for 30 plus years and just be starting to kind of heal and go through it. There's no time limit there and healing. And would it be great if we could all be completely healed and fine by 35? It would be fantastic. Unfortunately, that's not all of our reality. Some of us take longer. Some of us never deal with it at all and bury it and just keep living life like nothing ever happened. I'm refusing to do that, and I need to go through this. Do I wish I had a therapist? Yes. Am I hoping that in January I will have one? Yes. It would be nice to have somebody to talk to about this who I feel safe with. That's why I'm here. I feel safe talking to myself and having these conversations. It's what I've done my whole life to process. I pace my house, I talk to myself out loud, and when I don't want to deal with things, I make up scenarios in my head and live in a different world. I used to read. I used to read to escape. And now I read to learn. Literally. I read biographies. I read self help books. I read to learn because I don't want to escape anymore. I want to deal with whatever it is so I can heal and continue forward. I don't believe it's called moving on. I think there are things we never completely move on from, but I think we can heal from it, create a scar, and become healthier versions of ourselves. That's what I believe. I am so glad I started doing this, not just for my mental health, but in hopes that if there's someone out there who is in the middle of healing from something that they didn't realize was a problem, or even maybe it was their mother, maybe it was their father, maybe it was a close friend or a step parent, that they know that they're not alone, that somebody else is going through this too. That's what is really important. It's not just about me healing, it's hopefully reaching somebody who needs to know they're not alone in their healing journey. The past can stay in the past. I can move forward and I can reconnect with old family members who I have not seen or talked to in 13 years. I am in a place in my life now that with boundaries. And I actually emailed one of my aunts and I got two emails from her. The first one was hard because there was a lot of negative things said about my mother. And they were her opinion, which she's entitled to. Like I said, I can take people's opinions and understand that's what they are and move forward. And the next one was wanting to know more about me and my family, and my husband, my kids, wanting to come up and visit sometime with her daughter that I'm close to, next year in the summer. And it's like, yeah, I want that. I want us to move forward from those really horrible moments in time and not keep looking back. There are things that I am currently processing when it comes to my mother because my brain is starting to remember things. And that is a totally different it's totally separate from me connecting with these family members is about letting go of a past that I had no control over. I had no control over what happened to me. I had no control of my mom and my father handled it. I can let that go. And simultaneously, I can sit here and process my past when it comes to my mother, when it comes to how I was raised, when it comes to her being overprotective, overbearing, controlling, and still be living in the present moment. What I have come to learn is that the most important thing in life is love. It is the only thing that matters. It's the only thing that exists after we die. Grief is all the love that you couldn't give that person because they're not here anymore. That's what grief is. And I want to continue moving forward and I want to build these relationships and I want to feel more at peace when it comes to my mother. And I will. Eventually that will happen. I will be there. But it's going to take some time. And that's okay. I am happy to start this new journey and have and rebuild these relationships and reconnect with people that I haven't talked to or seen in 13 years. I am very excited about the possibility. At the same time, I'm cautious. I know how to how to set boundaries now. I have never been where I am now. I can set boundaries. I can be very clear about what I what I would like to hear about, what I don't want to hear about. I can stand up for myself because I have the right to, I have the right to keep my peace and feel comfortable. And if I don't feel comfortable, I'm allowed to speak up and say something. I was almost there before. I think I was 24 years old, maybe 25. And I was just starting to realize that my voice mattered, my opinion mattered. It faded away, and I wasn't able to keep that mindset. But now I'm able to be there. Here I am, speaking my truth, telling my stories, telling what happened to me, what I experienced, setting boundaries with people so they know what lines they can't cross, and protecting my peace. I am so proud of where I am. I have a long way to go, but I am so proud of where I am. I have worked really hard to get here. And I have maybe have only been gone for almost 6 months now. But these past 6 months have been really eye-opening. They're painful. I'll tell you, it is painful to go back and to remember certain things, but the healing that comes afterwards is so worth it. The peace that comes afterwards is so worth it. And this healing process, it's not just one road. It is a winding road and you're continuously growing. And I don't ever want to stop growing. I'm not doing this just for me. I'm doing it for my kids too. I'm learning how to be a more compassionate, sympathetic mother. It's funny because I'm very empathetic. I'm a very empathetic person, and I have that with my kids. But I remind myself time and time again when they're upset about something that I just don't understand why they're upset about it. To me, it's not important. I remind myself it might not be important to you, but it's important to them, and that they're important to you. And that's when I'm able to be there emotionally for my children. It was something I really struggled with because of my mother, because of our history. And the fact that I'm able to realize that and recollect that and start being better about that, I am so glad that I'm getting there. I never thought to look at what my flaws are, my faults are, and start to remedy that. I knew I wasn't perfect. I knew that I was an imperfect human being, but I also thought that's just all I am, and never realized that I could change that. I read I'm still reading it obviously because it's a very deep book, but it's called How to Do the Work by Dr. Nicole LePera, and that's what her book made me realize that I was emotionally distant from my children. And that's when I started to work on being more present emotionally with my children. I am so thankful for finding that book and buying that book. It has helped me reconnect with my kids in a way that I wasn't able to before. And I will link the name and the author in the show notes so you can find it on Amazon or wherever you buy your books. I think it might also be an audiobook, but don't quote me on that. I'm not sure. I appreciate you being here. Thank you for listening. And I hope you will join me next week for another episode of Healing from the Mess with me, Lizzie.